Hi, I'm Mandy Hawtin, and this is my chapter, The Girl at the Fence. I was almost 4 years old, standing in the backyard, staring at the rear fence. And up until that moment, I believed my mother knew everything. I thought she could read my mind, that nothing in my world existed outside her awareness. In that still moment, after an incident I did not yet understand, I realised something that would shape my life. She did not know what had happened, and I decided not to tell her. In that moment, something disconnected. I felt alone in the world, and I did not reconnect for over 20 years. It was not a conscious adult decision. It was the conclusion of a small child who believed she was protecting her family by staying silent. That was the day I learned to hold things in, the day I became someone who did not share. Years later, as a teenager, I was described as painfully shy. I listened far more than I talked, and I learnt to ask questions so the focus stayed on other people. Friends knew details of my life, but rarely how I felt about things. Without realising it, I built a personality around invisibility, a pattern I carried into adulthood. When I was 26 and newly married, I undertook a communications course. The heart of the course involved identifying blockages to our full self-expression. The pinnacle involved taking to the stage and sharing your blockage with the other 100 people in the room. I felt incredibly nervous, and unsurprisingly, I was one of the last people to volunteer. When I finally walked onto the stage, my heart was racing. Yet, the moment I reached the microphone, something unexpected happened. It was as though a calmness came over me. The fear disappeared, and instead of speaking, my mind went blank. I walked off the stage and tried again, but the same thing happened. Looking back, I believe my subconscious mind was keeping me safe, just as it had done in childhood. On my third attempt, I walked back onto the stage, down the runway, and stepped close to the microphone. This time I spoke clearly and confidently, and the room erupted into applause. It felt amazing and so supportive. My blockage to my full self-expression was based on that early childhood decision, and I shared it with the class. I don't share. It was the first visible crack in decades of keeping myself small, and from that moment, I noticed a subtle shift. I began to share my opinions and thoughts more openly in conversations, and I found that it deepened my personal relationships in a way I hadn't experienced before. I believed at the time that I had fixed myself, yet as life unfolded, I later realised that patterns formed in childhood do not disappear overnight. They soften, they evolve, and sometimes they quietly return in new environments. My husband, who has always been my greatest supporter, and I raised 3 sons together. Motherhood was joyful and challenging in equal measure. I wanted meaningful work, but also wanted to be present. So at 45, after spending 10 years completing my MBA, raising babies and being out of the workforce, I did something both practical and brave. I started my own business. Not because I had a grand plan, but because I wanted work that could fit around family life. I had the concept, the vision, and the drive, yet I chose a business partner who could be the visible face of the business. It felt like a logical decision at the time, but in truth, it was also a continuation of my long-standing comfort with remaining behind the scenes. That first business grew beyond anything I imagined. What began at home soon outgrew our spare room and moved into a warehouse and office. Outwardly, I had built something successful. Inwardly, I was still the girl at the fence, standing at networking events, holding the camera instead of being in the photo, writing emails but signing someone else's name, allowing others to be the face of the work that I was so deeply involved in creating. Thankfully, I was encouraged to appear in a private Facebook group, and this gave me a safe space to be seen by a select group. For a long time, invisibility felt safe. However, invisibility has a cost. As the business began to win awards, I noticed that public perception was shaped by visibility. In some cases, people assumed I'd been an assistant rather than a business partner and product creator. Those moments hurt more than I expected. It was then that I truly saw the cost of my decisions to remain unseen. By protecting myself from visibility, I had also unintentionally diminished my own contribution. Reinvention, I would later learn, does not begin when you feel ready. It's an ongoing process that starts when the life you are living collides with the truth of who you are becoming. The turning point in my professional life did not begin with ambition. It began with discomfort. As the business evolved, I found myself wanting to create more technically advanced products than my knowledge allowed. I had been making simple skincare products since I was a teenager, but I knew there was a limit to what I could create. I did not want to replicate basic products. I wanted to understand why ingredients worked, how formulas behaved, and what was happening beneath the surface of the skin. So, in my late 40s, I studied cosmetic chemistry. I worried that I would be the oldest student there, yet I found many women in their 40s and 50s returning to education. It was a powerful reminder that reinvention does not have an age limit. I was running a growing business by day and studying at night and on weekends. I missed family birthdays and Sunday gatherings, yet it was one of the most fulfilling years of my life. Study changed something deeper than my skill set. It changed how I saw the industry and how I saw my own responsibility within it. As I studied marketing claims, compliance, and formulation ethics, I had an uncomfortable realization. Much of the language commonly used in the beauty industry, including within my own work at that time, stretched beyond what could be properly substantiated. This was not intentional deception, but a reflection of industry norms and widespread limited understanding. Once I knew better, I could not continue in the same way. This realization was deeply personal because we had genuinely wanted the brand to stand for organic and natural products that were kinder to the planet. Yet, when viewed through the lens of education and compliance, I could see that our values and our execution were not always aligned. That awareness was confronting, but also clarifying. Personal integrity means acknowledging where the brand fell short and choosing to do better moving forward. During my education, I was also taught to formulate to a brief. In the beauty industry, products are often designed to meet budgets and marketing narratives, sometimes resulting in formulas that include popular ingredients at levels too low to deliver meaningful results. For me, this became a defining moment. I realized I did not want to formulate to justify a marketing line. I wanted ingredient choices and input levels to be guided by function, evidence, and integrity. That same year, I entered an international formulating competition for students. While our brand had previously won awards, this recognition felt different. This time, it was my name and my work being acknowledged independently. Seeing my formula, photo, and bio featured in a global product guide was a significant moment. I was being seen. Halfway through my diploma, the business I had helped build began to change. Sales softened, priorities shifted, and my business partner made the difficult decision to step away. I was heartbroken. It had been my dream, my daily purpose, and a major part of my identity. Yet resilience does not always look like holding on. Sometimes it looks like letting go and trusting that endings can create space for something new. On professional advice from our accountant, we sold one brand, closed another, and I turned my focus to completing my studies. I found myself in an unfamiliar space, studying full-time, emotionally tender, and gently drawn back to the places and memories that had always made me feel safe. My love of the ocean runs deep. As a child, I spent school holidays with my grandparents in a small coastal town in South Australia. My parents worked, and during school holidays, I would stay by the sea. My nana walked every single day, rain or shine, saying, "We're going for a walk around the rocks," and off we would go along the rugged coastline, the wind sharp and the waves constantly crashing. Years later, during periods of stress, I found myself returning to the ocean. I would walk along the shoreline, stand at the water's edge and watch the waves. No matter what mood I was in, I always felt calm while watching them. It was as though the ocean offered a steady rhythm when life felt uncertain. Only much later did I understand that this sense of calm and regulation began on those childhood walks with Nana. So when I found myself immersed in marine actives during my studies, it did not feel like a trend. It felt like a return to something deeply familiar and grounding. While finishing my diploma, I formulated a dozen products using marine and organic ingredients. It was exciting and ambitious, yet also financially impractical to launch such a large range. What initially felt like a roadblock became an invitation to think differently. I asked myself a simple question: what products do I want in my own bathroom? The answer was simplicity, multi-purpose products that work. So I went back to my home lab and got creative. With that, my new business began to take shape, and I made a decision that felt as important as the formulations themselves. I would build it differently. In my first business, I had carried too much, creating products, managing operations, handling logistics, and staying largely behind the scenes, working long hours. This time, I wrote a business plan before I started, not 2 years in. It centered on my zone of genius, as they say, and the company structure. I focused my energy on creating products and delivering science, beauty, education. Everything else would be supported by specialist agencies. I also allocated time each morning to walk, read, enjoy a cup of coffee, journal, or meditate, basically to do whatever I choose. I planned for me time, and these days, work begins at 11 a.m. While my new business was developing, there was another reinvention happening at the same time, and one that felt far more confronting. For most of my professional life, I had stayed behind the camera, yet as my work increasingly involved education and truth-telling, I realised people wanted to hear directly from me. Sharing openly did not come naturally, yet I now saw it as a responsibility. At first, I had little understanding of social media or public platforms. It felt like learning a new language. I posted tentatively, made mistakes, and felt visible in ways that once would have been deeply uncomfortable. Thankfully, I was surrounded by supportive women in business and a family who encouraged me to continue. The true breakthrough was internal. I became comfortable with the idea of making mistakes in public, looking imperfect or just silly. That is what visibility requires. It requires courage over perfection. My nana used to say, if you feel fear and there isn't danger, do it anyway. So that is what I began to do. Within months, I was booked for multiple podcasts, panel discussions, asked to speak at summits, and encouraged to write a book on busting beauty myths. Around the same time, my husband was offered an exciting professional opportunity that would take our family from Adelaide, Australia, to Houston, Texas. Like many major life decisions, I could think of 10 reasons not to do it. The distance from loved ones, the uncertainty, the emotional upheaval. Yet, in the end, you only need one strong reason to say yes. For me, it was the spirit of seizing the moment and embracing the opportunity rather than retreating from it. Carpe diem. The move was more emotional than expected. I stayed behind initially, supporting our teenage son through surgery, helping our eldest son move interstate as he stepped into his independence and left the family home, and finalising the sale of our home. When I finally arrived in Texas, I found myself driving on unfamiliar American freeways with shaking hands, playing Enya just to steady my nerves. 6 months later, I was driving confidently, music playing loudly, exploring a new country and a new rhythm of life. The business structure I had implemented meant I could run my new business from anywhere. All I needed was my tablet and my smartphone. Looking back, I have come to understand that life is a continuous journey, not a destination we finally reach and complete. With each level of growth comes new awareness, and with that awareness comes deeper insight into our subconscious patterns. Growth does not remove our past. It allows us to understand it more clearly, inviting us to respond differently. From a child who decided not to share, to a woman who speaks publicly about beauty and science. From a business built around family life, to a business structure that allows leadership from afar. From repeating industry norms to questioning and challenging them. Resilience is not just endurance, it is the courage to evolve and be seen, even when staying hidden once felt safer. Perhaps, as you listen to this, there is a part of your own story asking to be acknowledged. A moment, like the girl at the fence, where something shifted and a part of you learned to stay quiet or to protect itself. Reinvention does not always arrive as a bold decision or a dramatic turning point. Sometimes it begins as awareness, a feeling that something no longer fits, or a quiet pull towards something new. And sometimes it is simply the decision to return to yourself and to reconnect with the parts of you that have been waiting patiently to be seen. Whatever that looks like for you, I hope this chapter reminds you that it is never too late to evolve, to question, and to choose a different way forward. Thank you.